Hello, my friends. I do hope that this finds you well. For today's devotion, I thought I'd talk a little bit about God's creation. If you might see from my skin, I've had a little bit of sun lately. I've been out in the garden, mowing the lawn, looking after the plants. And I know that I have spoken about nature before, and I've actually used Job before, but I'm going to repeat both. Not the same devotion, but just a reminder of how important nature is, how important it is to respect God's creation. And we know that because the scriptural references to nature are plentiful, to say the least. For it is within nature that we catch glimpses of God, in the majesty of a soaring mountain, in the steadfastness of a flowing river, the simplicity of the lily of the valley, or the glory of the rose, the promise in a glorious sunrise, and the comfort of a spectacular sunset. In the many faces of nature, we see reflected the many faces of God. So whether one looks to the beautiful creation narrative of Genesis, the songs of praise from the psalmists in the Psalms, the metaphors of the great prophet Isaiah, or the parables of Christ, we know that by virtue of our covenant with God, as God's faithful children, we are also in covenant with all of God's creation. And as in all covenantal relationships, there are responsibilities that flow both ways. Nature sustains us. There is no doubt that she teaches us, nurtures us, delights us. And we quite simply, we must care for nature. Sadly, we have not really been holding up our end of the bargain lately. By neglecting our duty to love nature, to love God's creation, we imperil both our physical and our spiritual survival. For all the beautiful scripture passages of the Bible, for me, the most compelling passage about nature are the ones uttered by the voice in the whirlwind in Job 38 through 41. In these passages, Job and his friends are on the receiving end of, to put it mildly, a scolding from God. Who are they, or for that matter, who are we, to presume to know God's mind? So what follows is 122 verses in which God illustrates through nature God's majesty, beauty, complexity, and presence. Take, for example, this. Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Tell me if you have understanding. What determined its measurements? Surely you know. Or who stretched the line upon it? Or what were its bases sunk? Or who laid its cornerstone? When the morning stars sang together and all the heavenly beings shouted for joy. And Job, after this comeuppance, finally and humbly can simply respond with an affirmation of faith. But do we do the same? Well, the voice from the whirlwind is challenging and scolding us still. Our arrogance in believing we can use and abuse nature with impunity continues. Here in southwestern Ontario, we have experienced many a winter in which the doors of the storehouses of the snow seem to have been flung relentlessly wide open. As Canadians, our own noble behemoth, the polar bear, is in danger of drowning into extinction as our Arctic ice continues to dwindle. And globally, we have witnessed droughts when the waterskins of the heavens have not tilted and the dust remains dust. All because we have neglected our call to love God's creation. But as always, that voice from the whirlwind calls. Even today, as I sat outside, if I could silence the noise of the traffic and the humming of machinery, the voice still called to me, in the sound of the bird song, the whisper of the leaves as the wind carries the scent of fresh lilac, the buzzing of a bee. It calls still to focus our attention away from our laptops and instead to see the flash of red, which is a cardinal zipping by, or the budding leaves which seem to have unfurled even as we sit answering emails on our phone. We have too long neglected our call to love God's creation. Yet because that God that we love is love, and that God is forgiveness, the voice still calls us. We can change, and we must change. As we emerge from this long hibernation of seclusion from the coronavirus, we must remember to be people who are truly living out their Christian imperative to love God's creation. I know that a new course forward can be forged in our covenantal relationship with God's creation. And then once more, we may reach a time when we can all look at creation and say that it is good. I hope you have a wonderful day, my friends.